All right, so this is my second part on the discussion of the psychological effect of being zooked, as they call it, of being deleted from a social media page or a page like YouTube, whatever YouTube is. I don't know whether YouTube qualifies as social media or not, but um, it's another place where you can post things and where you can be banned if you say the wrong thing, So, in that sense, it's very similar. So, the last thing I mentioned was how it can make you feel like a pariah. And it never gets easier. You'd think that you'd develop a thick skin, but it always it pisses me off. Yesterday, I was so pissed off. Um, but I was pissed off because like uh, for a lot of times when you're a man and you're pissed off about something, you're really crying on the inside. Um, you know, you're crying because you were hurt, because you were wronged, um, and the way you respond to it is with anger, fury. Um, but it's true. I mean, it's real. The anger is real. It's authentic. But underneath that anger, uh, there's the crying little boy. Uh, um, I don't know. At least with me, I'm going to be completely honest. Again, maybe there are people out there who are just who have cold, dead hearts at this point. Sorry, there were people who were infringing on my space there, so I had to move on down the line, which is what I'm doing now. Um, so uh, you maybe you're a real legit tough guy, okay? And if you are, great, you know. Um, and maybe you just shrug when you are treated like a pariah. Maybe it just doesn't bother you anymore. I'm speaking as someone who has been pariahized a lot. Not saying that I'm a victim, not saying that I've got it worse than you know everybody else, because I know, you know, I know that there's a lot of suffering in the world, and a lot of people have suffered it. What I'm talking about, far worse than I have. But I think unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because because I don't like being this way. I'd like to just be more of a badass. But I have to admit, I have to be emotionally honest and admit that it hurts. It never stops hurting when you are regarded as a pariah, when you are rejected, when you're thrown out of the tribe. It's just, I believe it's a part of who we are, and in more healthy, normal circumstances, the desire for conformity can actually be a good thing. If you have a healthy society which values the right things, then the desire to conform is just a desire to be good, moral, and healthy, in line with a society or a culture that is good, moral, and healthy. We don't have that kind of society today, but we still have this aspect of ourselves that wants to be accepted and admired, and looked up to and thought well of. So, getting cast out hurts. But another another stigmatizing aspect of it. And this is something I think it's interesting to speak of, because, I have recently had a campaign. Well, calling it a campaign is a little too grandiose, but I've had people say, well, Nowicki's just crazy. He's losing his mind. He's losing his marbles. He used to have it together, but now he believes all this crazy conspiracy stuff. And he's having a mental breakdown. Colin Liddell was pushing this really, really hard in a couple of the articles that he wrote about me when I wrote a couple of things that were calling him out. And it's not like that's the first time I've heard that. Well, when you're cast out of the herd and you're told, this is the consensus, this is the science, all the experts agree, which isn't true, but it's what they tell you, and they amplify that message. And they have a way of amplifying that message so they can effectively bully people into believing that that's true. And then they stigmatize you as a crazy, as a crazy person who believes crazy things. And what can you really do when people say that you're a nut? You can say, well, no, I don't think I'm a nut. I don't think I'm crazy. But if you protest too strongly, then it's, he doth protest too much, methinks, right? So you kind of have to play it cool. And just sort of shrug and smirk about it and say, yeah, I'm crazy. I'm loony as a loon. And just kind of have an ironic and tolerant disposition towards it, even though it's slanderous. Even though, whatever you can say about me, and there are plenty of things you could say about me, plenty of bad things, plenty of negative things you could say about me, but that I'm crazy, no. You could say that I'm hot-headed at times. You could say that I'm prone to melancholia, and plenty of other things. I'm not going to go into a litany of all of my faults here. But crazy, no. I don't think so. I really, really don't. But then they can always render you crazy, and that when by render you crazy, I mean they can always have some authoritative people say, well, yes, I believe in my expert opinion that he has lost his mind. And that the story I covered earlier, two videos ago, the one about the shooting in Atlanta at Perimeter Mall in April of 1990 in the pre-internet age, something that really stuck out to me about that story is, whatever the guy, and I don't know what the ultimate truth is in that story. There's a lot of peculiarities, but I don't claim to know what the truth is one way or the other. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch it. It's the video, 2 videos before this one. But what I notice about that story now, in historical retrospective, is that in 1990, we all just thought, this guy's crazy. This guy's a loon. This guy has mental problems. And when he said that they put a mechanical device in him, that's just a sign of his delusional nature. And when he said, you don't know what these people have done to me, that was just crazy talk. Nobody did anything to him. He just had this delusion that they were doing things to him. I mean, I don't know the truth. It may be that he was a bona fide schizophrenic. That still leaves a lot of threads, a lot of unspooled threads that can't be accounted for in the story. It's still a peculiar story. But I mean, let's just stipulate, for argument's sake, let's just say that this guy, can't remember his name right now, it was a 3-name, of course every killer has we always say his middle name, don't we? So let's just stipulate that he wasn't actually crazy, or he wasn't actually, it wasn't this schizophrenic delusion, that he actually was violated by the supposed mental health care system in ways that were unspeakable. And it's not like there's no precedent for that. It's not like that hasn't happened. That has happened many, many times. They've admitted to it. Back in the 90s, Bill Clinton, of all people, and I hate Bill Clinton probably more than any of you do, but even he said, yes, it's true. We had this program, the American government had this program called MK Ultra, where we pursued mind control with unwilling participants, with people who did not agree to be experimented upon. I mean, if that can be, if even the chief executive of the government admits that it happened, of course, what he said was, it was a program that ended in the 70s and blah, blah, blah. We don't do that kind of thing anymore. Yeah, right. But, I think that there are actual people who are actually truly mentally unwell by birth. I mean, I do believe that. I do believe schizophrenia exists, and maybe the shooter was one of them. But for me, there's plenty of healthy doubt to hold in one's heart with regard to this case, given what we know about the powers that be and how they operate. So, my heart went out to this guy. It goes out to this guy, which I have no way of finding him now. I mean, maybe there is a way, but there's no apparent way. There's no record of him, either being released from prison, if he was imprisoned. You type in his name, you don't get very much. I don't know whether he's still with us. He was 31 at the time. That would make him around 60, early 60s now. So technically, he should still be alive. But clearly, his story hasn't been told. Or the only version that we have of his story is what we know from these old archived articles. And everyone at the time in 1990, including me, Just nobody really at the time thought to scrutinize news stories like this, and ask ourselves, what's really going on here? That just really wasn't what one did back then. I mean, there were people who doubted the official versions of, the Kennedy assassinations and the Martin Luther King assassination and other things. But there wasn't really this tendency to say to oneself, I bet there's more here than meets the eye. They might be lying to us, or they might be sending us down a blind alley, Like with the story, they said, there was controversy because, people were blaming the mental health system for letting him go when he was said to have homicidal and suicidal tendencies. And people asked, did they just let him go because of overcrowding? And Slow Frank Harris, the governor of Georgia at the time, said, no, that wasn't the case. But that just puts it into your mind, doesn't it? That sends you down that alley of saying, oh, it must have been about, the irresponsible discharge of this mental patient who was clearly disturbed and needed to be locked up, but was let go. Maybe that's true, but, it also just seems like that might be a way to get you to go down that path and say, oh, those irresponsible people who discharged him from the mental institution when he clearly had the document in his pocket. He had it in his pocket. Who carries that around with them to a mass shooting? Who gets all dressed up in a suit and tie and sticks a sheet of paper which says, we're letting this guy go even though he's mentally unstable, even though he's homicidal and suicidal? What in the hell? Why? So they get you to go down that path, and people did. Everybody did. Not everybody. Most people just didn't think much about it. But they just moved on from one news story to another. But those who did look into it, that was where they were steered. Meanwhile, the real story could have been what they actually did to him when they had him incarcerated. Again, Colin, if you're watching this, I'm not saying that that's definitely what happened, but so don't say that don't say this is a further cause of further evidence of my ongoing mental breakdown. Well, if you want to say it, go ahead. But I'm just saying it's a possibility, and it's not a possibility that anyone looked into in 1990. So, bringing this back to oneself, when you're called mentally ill, you are a pariah. And it's been a trick that's been used on so many people, so many dissidents. I think it was pretty common in the Soviet Union. If you were a dissident from the Soviet system, they called you mentally ill. And I think it's not something that happened as systematically in the West, but I think it still happened. So that's another thing, another effect of being pariahed has. It makes you into someone whom people regard as a crank, a crazy, a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. Whenever you hear the word conspiracy theory, whenever you hear a newsman or newswoman say conspiracy theory, know that you're being manipulated. Know that you're being manipulated, because that is a manipulating phrase. So if you're watching something and they talk about someone and how he had conspiracy theories, you're being manipulated when they say that phrase to you. You're being expected to behave in a way similar to Pavlov's dogs. Don't have that reaction. Fight it. Fight the programming. And on that note, on that crazy note, I'll end this video. Thanks for watching.